Okay, great. So I asked you to put 4 images in a collection. I have more than that in my quick collection just because they're, I want to show you a number of different ways of doing this. But first I will show you, the first method I'm going to show you is this one, which is just a simple triptych with a plain background. Okay, that's the simplest thing you can do in Lightroom. It all depends on rows and columns. Here is another one. I still just have 1 row, but I have 6 columns, so I can put 6 images into it. You can make these 3 by 3 or 4 by 2 or whatever, but everything is linear and there is no difference in sizes and you can't overlap at all. And so this is the one I'll be going through with you today, step by step. After that, Lightroom has some templates, and here you can see there's a little more variation. You have difference in sizes of the images, and if you look at the background here, there's a plain background and you can change it to any background you want. So you're starting to get a lot more variation. Then you can build your own. This is 3 across, and then I wanted to make 1 bigger, and then I can overlap the 2. So as you get more comfortable, you can start making more changes. And then this is the summer banner for the London Camera Club website. So then I'm getting into making it a very specific size. Okay, so those are all the things, the different things I have done with it. Okay, so what you always do is you start in your library in the collection, and I'm going to, we're going to do 3 photos to start with. Choose your 3 photos and then go to the print module, which is in the upper right corner. Okay, so now I am in print. It's going to look different just depending what was the last thing you did in print, and I'm not sure if you've never been there what the default is, but everybody's will look a little bit different to start with, but we're not going to worry about that. So the first thing I'm going to have everybody do is we're going to, over on the left, there's Lightroom templates. We're going to choose an 8 by 10. And it's in a portrait orientation. So I'm going down to page setup and I'm changing it to landscape. So there we go. Now I have my 3 images selected. You only are seeing 1 because I have, right now it's showing, I'm over here on the right, the page grid, 1 row and 1 column. But as I move this over, I'm getting 3 columns, okay? So you say, okay, that's good. They still don't, it still doesn't look right. You can change this around using, changing the cell size, you know, something like this. You have lots of flexibility. Today, to keep it simple, that's why I asked everybody to crop into a square. We're just going to keep them square and they're nicely aligned for us, okay? Okay, I have notes here, so I just have to see. Okay, so, okay, no, I'll do that step by step after. I'll just build it here. So then I just look at this. I think I want a little bit of spacing though between them. So I can do that. If you see a little bit of space, I think I prefer it closer to the top. So I can move them up. We can also move things over one way or another way. There's okay. Now it's moved the spacing. So there's, like you can see, there's lots of things you can do to play with this, moving this around. Okay. You can also change the background color. So I'm still in the right-hand panel. You check background color. You pick here, it looks like the options are only black and white and gray, but if you click on the eyedropper, you can bring that out into your image and pick any color you want. Okay, we're just gonna pick some kind of green here. Okay, so you pick a background color. Then you want to make these a little fancier, so you can come up here to stroke border, and if you see, I can put a stroke around my images, and also I can change those to whatever color I want. Now I don't like my margins at the side. I want those to come in a bit. And the next thing you can do down, I'm scrolling down on the right to the identity plate. My main identity plate is my watermark, which has rotated, so no rotation. You can do that. You can scale it. Okay, or your other option is you can edit and use a graphic. So here, I'll just put, let's say, spring flowers. You can use any type of wording, or you can use this as your copyright. Okay, now to change the script, it's like everything else, you highlight it. I'm gonna make a fancy one. Same thing, you can change the color of it. I'll do something that I hope you can see. Hit OK. And there you go. You have that. And again, you can scale it, move it around, move everything around after the fact. Okay, when this is all done, we press, I'll go over this in detail again, but you need draft mode printing off, or else you just get a fuzzy mess. And it's important not to have print on. Print will send this to your printer, but if you hit print to file, it will export a JPEG to wherever you have chosen. Okay, so that's the basic process. So now I'll go over it again. I think I'll go over it again much slower, and hopefully everybody can follow along if they want and ask some questions. Okay, maybe Bill, can you unmute some people so I can hear if people are understanding me at all, or what I'm trying to do?
Everybody's unmuted now.
Marion, how much words can you end up putting on this if you wanted to write a whole paragraph about all the spring flowers?
Oh, do you know what? I have never tried that, so I don't know. I've done just like a title, or I usually just use my own watermark. So I've never tried. Maybe
Okay,
as many as fit in the box, I don't know.
Or you'd have to have a text box and then put that as another photo?
Yes, you could do that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But this, you know, you can change the size of the font, and you can change the size of the box it fits in. So I imagine, you know, it seems like there's quite a bit of flexibility with it. Okay, so how many people, or is anyone going to be following along? Can I just know if anyone's going to be following along?
Yeah.
You are? Okay.
Maria's gonna try.
I am Marion, but I'm sorry I missed at the very beginning how you picked that horizontal profile. I have everything vertical and I cannot find horizontal.
Oh, where it says page setup on the lower left. Oh, you can see where I am in the lower left page setup?
Lower left.
Left.
Oh yes, page setup. Okay,
Yeah.
got it. I missed that at the very beginning.
Landscape. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so
Did you say the page setup was? I can't find it.
lower left.
Yeah, I don't see it.
Do you see where my mouse is, Yuda?
Yes. Oh, I see. Page setup. Right. Okay. I was looking for something smaller. Okay,
Okay.
great.
Marion,
Yes.
I have a question too. So once you've set this up, can you save this as a template to use again and again?
Yes, that's all. Yes, I'm going to be showing you that. That becomes, when
Okay.
we're doing it this way with the rows and columns, it's not quite as critical to set it up as a template. But I have, like, if you look at okay, now look on the left of my screen. These are my templates. You can see the LCC banners take up a lot of it because those were quite tricky to figure out. So there's no way in the world I want to lose those. So
That's my one. Okay.
those are there.
Okay, and you're going to show us that later. That's fine.
Yeah, for now, I want to show you the, I just wanted you to get an idea of what I was going to be doing, and then we're going to be going back through it in more detail with everybody following along.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. Maybe I'm thinking maybe I'll talk for about 5 minutes and then what do you think, Bill? And then unmute everybody and see if there's questions along the way. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, sure, that's fine.
Okay. I see there's, okay, I'm not going to worry about looking at the chat either. Okay. So I am going to just get out of this. And let me just get back to being blank when I come in. Okay.
Now my column is vertical rather than horizontal.
Okay, but okay, let me,
That's
we're
a
gonna
page
start,
setup?
we're gonna go step by step now, okay? I just wanted some general questions. Okay, so first thing you do, go to your library and pick your 3 images. Okay, everybody can hear me fine? Okay, all of a sudden I saw that I was muted. Okay, so we're going to go to the library to your collection and you're going to pick 3 images. Now, when we're doing the, when we're doing it this way, using the rows and columns, you cannot change the order of the images in. Want to change the order, you have to come back to the library and change it there. So I want everybody to put their images in the order they want now, if you care, or you don't have to, but I'll show you how to do it. So at the bottom here in your toolbar, everybody, if you don't see your toolbar, press the T key and that will bring up your toolbar. The sort order needs to be custom. there's a lot of different variations like capture time, rating, things like that, but it needs to be custom. And this allows you to customize the order. So I actually want this picture in the middle of the other two. Okay, then I'm going to select my 3 images that I want, and I'm going to go to the print module. And everybody might be seeing something different, but we're all going to, on the left-hand side, under Lightroom templates, check 8 by 10. And then if it's in portrait mode, like mine is, you come down, oh, here I can zoom in. You come down to the bottom here where my mouse is, page setup. Oh, now it doesn't show. And landscape and okay. Okay, now everybody should be in landscape mode. Okay, right now, I find it easiest to go through this just to deselect your images and everybody just has a plain white screen, okay? And I'm going to zoom in now on the panel on the right, and I'm going to go through this with everybody, all the things I want you to set here, okay? So as I talked about before, you'll want to print to file, okay? If you check that, you're not going to be doing, it's not, okay, I'll tell you how you can tell. If you go click on custom file dimensions, if you have it set to print, it will not let you check custom file dimensions. So that's why you always need to be in print to file. Okay, so custom file dimensions, and this is where as you get more experience with this, you can make things like I made the LCC banner, like a very specific size. So going again from the bottom up, print adjustment I leave off because we're not actually printing, we're exporting a JPEG and we want it to look the way it looked to start with, okay? Profile sRGB, intent is perceptual. Print sharpening, I have it on high, and glossy, I've just always had it that way. The file resolution, it doesn't, I know usually when we're exporting JPEGs, it doesn't matter. But if you just put it to 100, when you export your JPEG, it will be very, very small. So I found when I leave it at 300, I get a good size JPEG out of this. Now, draft printing, make sure that is off. If you ever have a really fuzzy outcome, it's usually because you have that on. Okay, so we're going to keep moving up. I've never done this page numbers, page info, photo info. I haven't used those. The identity plate is what I talked about before. We're coming back to that. We're just trying to get everything set now. The page background color, that's what I will check when we change the background. Now here, we can try this if everyone wants to show the guides. That will put up different guides on the page, and sometimes, like sometimes they're nice to have on when you're laying out the page to make sure things are straight. Okay, so the cell size, this is where you can change the width and height of each cell, but in the way we're doing it now, they have to stay exactly the same. They're all the same, except when we go to a custom layout. But in this way, they're all the same. And we had ours as a keep square, okay? Page grid, that's where we changed from rows, the rows and columns, how many, which you can make anything you want. And your margins here, just make sure they're all about the same to start with. Okay, mine, it doesn't really matter. Sometimes they, 0.17, 0.25, okay. Stroke border we'll have off for now. We'll come back to it. Zoomed, I would say don't do rotate to fit, because lots of times things flip around on when you don't want them. Zoom to fill fills up your square. And
If you could make,
at top, we want single image contact sheet. Okay. Okay. There we go. So no, I haven't actually done anything. I was just going through where you would find all the options. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so now we are ready to start. So everybody select their 3 images, and you will probably, if you're like me, just see the one, okay? So what I'm hoping for now is, because we've gone through the other side, let me see if I can go like this at least. We want 1 row and 3 columns, okay? And they still won't be the right size. So you have the option of changing the height, the cell size here to whatever you like. Or since we all have squares, to keep things easy today, I'm saying keeping them square. So,
hi, Marion.
hello.
I think we've lost the left side of your screen, and the bottom, we don't see the film strip.
Okay, I purposely cut out the left screen side of the screen to make it bigger, or actually that's why I cut the bottom too, just to try to make this a little bit bigger, the part I'm actually working on, so everybody could see it a little bit better. Okay.
How did you change it from 1 to 3?
Okay, so over on the right where page grid, 1 row, 3 columns. Now, if I were to make 6 columns, remember the one I showed you with the door? You know, you can do whatever you want, right? However many columns. Is everyone seeing my? You can do a 9 by 9 grid. You can almost do, you can do anything. And this is where it's really flexible. Where it's inflexible is that they will all be the same size and you can't overlap in any way. Okay, and because I have my show guides on, you're seeing, like you're seeing the size, the different sizes and things, which can come in handy in many reasons, in many ways. So, okay, maybe if we can unmute everybody and let me see, does everybody have 1 row with 3 columns in it now that they can see that look something like mine?
I do.
Yep.
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Okay, is anyone not able to get this? No, it sounds good. Okay.
I have the 3, but they're full height.
Okay, then over here where it says keep square, check keep square, and that's why I had, just to keep it simple for today, rather than us all fooling around with different sizes, we're just going to keep everything square. Under
That
cell
works.
size,
Thank you.
okay, is that working for everybody?
Yep.
Okay, so now, I always like a little bit of space on the outside of my images. Like I don't like them, here I'll show you, if I make my right and left margins, like I don't like the way that looks, you know? So if you have them butted up right against the side, they don't have to be the same measurements mine are, but just make sure they are the same, the left and the right, and create a bit of a margin around it. And I also don't like the no space between the squares. And this is where you do the spacing between your cells, right in here. I usually just do 0.5 or 0.6 in there, and you just get a little bit of room. Okay. Now, okay, we're all going to try something now. Even if I just wanted everybody to start off with an 8 by 10, just to give us all the starting point. But to me, like there's way too much space around these. So let's go down. This is why I was showing you all these options before. Let's go down to custom file dimensions and check that. And let's change this to 9 inches, and you type it in, okay? You just type it in, 9 inches by 5 inches. Okay, I'll move my margin a bit. Now to me that's looking like a nicer size. Okay. And I've lost my horizontal spacing doing that. So go back like that. So is there anybody not able to change it to a custom file dimension? We're all good. This is so different than in a classroom where I can see if people are getting it or not. Okay, so now we can play a bit more. I would still like to move all the cells up a bit to leave a little bit more room on the lower. So I'm coming back up on the right where all my controls are, under layout, margins, and I'm going to change my bottom one and move these up. Okay, you can do, you know, you don't have to do exactly what I'm doing. Let's say you want that like that, and you want your title or whatever at the top. You can move them down, or you can leave them in the middle, whatever you like. I kind of like, I like something below it. Okay. Anybody not able to move that around? Okay, sounds like we're all good. So now let's change the background color. This is coming down on the right, and we have to check now, a little check mark here, that we're doing page background color. I click on the white page and this black and white pops up, but it has an eyedropper in it. click the eyedropper, I just pressed on it with my mouse. Bring your eyedropper out into your image and find a color. What do I want? Okay, so, or find, I can show you this too. Let's say you find a color close to what you want, but it's not exactly what you want. You can then, like, you know, fine tune it here. I want a kind of a spring green, or over here. Do you see how I'm bringing my eyedropper now just into all the different shades of green? So you have lots and lots of flexibility for color here.
Marion, can you show me again, sorry, how you moved the eyedropper into the photo to pick a color?
Okay, so you, okay, here, I'll put this back to white. So I come over here to the white, and then just as I'm using a mouse, as I bring my mouse into, move it over into this gradiated area, then I click on it. Then I move it out into the photo.
Okay, so you, do you have to be on the white to get it? Because I have the dropper until I move it into my picture, and then it just changes to a regular cursor.
Just keep the mouse down.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, perfect.
yeah,
Keep the mouse down. That's the trick.
Okay.
okay. And then also I do it with holding the mouse down. I fine tune the color. I'm making these all super bright. This was a project for my flower group this week. Not my flower group, the flower group I belong to. We were doing, that's why I just did these this week. That's why I have the lots of flowers in here.
Marion,
Yes,
can you do texturing also for the background?
not until we get into custom layout, which is what I'll show next, but I wanted to start with the easiest way first.
Thank you.
Okay, but in the custom layouts, you have more flexibility. But this is, I still use this quite a bit, even though it's not as flexible as custom, but I definitely still use it. Okay, so once I have my color, I'm going to go up now and I want to add a stroke. Okay, so when you add a stroke, you check stroke, and the default is always black. And then everybody just try changing the border width. You can see, oh, look how, I didn't even realize it went that big. Yeah, you can make a pretty good size frame. I usually just do a little one, but just for fun today to show, I will make this a little bit, I'll make this really wide. Now the same thing to change the color of the stroke. I click on the black, then I bring my mouse eyedropper here, holding it, I drag it into the image and choose a color. Oh my goodness, I'm making this really, I'm just trying to make it so I can show everybody. Okay, that there is flexibility here with colors. You don't have to do black and white. Okay, that just looks so, I'll make that quite a bit stronger. Quite a bit smaller. Okay. Okay. Has anybody not found the stroke or being able to change the color of the stroke or the size? Good. Okay, and what I like to do here sometimes is see how I have all my guides on. Sometimes I just find that I just want to see what it looks like without them. So just click off the box and then you kind of go, oh, here, I have to move my margin a bit so you can see it all. You know, you can kind of see how that looks for where you want to put your identity plate or whatever. That's looking pretty good. I'm going to click them back on just to help me get my identity plate. Okay. So now we'll be doing, I've shown you if you have your own watermark. So click this on. So you can add your watermark to here just the way you do to anything else in Lightroom. But for today, let's try just writing something. So you'll get a little pop-up menu and you want to select use this style text identity plate. And in here, I just like to type my words to start with. The important thing is to highlight them and then pick your text. And it's just like anything else, regular, bold, italic, and the size. And
Marion, I'm not seeing where you got that dialog box.
Okay, I'll cancel and I'll start again. So so over here, I'll zoom in over here.
Yep.
Whoops. Okay. So right here, under page where it says identity plate. Okay, so you click on identity plate and then here there's a little drop down arrow and then you go to edit because you're wanting to make a brand new one.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Then, let me see. Then here you go to use stylized, okay. And I usually type in my words first. Then I highlight them. I pick my text. And this, I don't worry about the size because the size is very easy to choose afterwards. And yeah, this kind of lets you, you can see the colors, whatever color you want. You can pick from the basics. You can go through this little arrow at the side. There's all these colors in here, all kinds of things. Once you've picked your color.
I'm sorry, I'm not seeing where you're getting the color. I'm seeing the different fonts and sizes.
Okay, the color is Scriptina, regular, and then over here, what was it to start with? I think, was it black? I think it was black. This little box, I'll cancel this and we'll start again. So here, edit, here, see, okay, it's black to start with. Right beside the size, there's a box. It looks like a black box.
Mine doesn't change, actually. I see the box, but nothing happens.
Have you highlighted your script?
Yes. Yep. And I have use a styled text identity plate. But if it's working for everybody else, that's fine. I'll figure it out later.
Okay, I'm just thinking, I'll do it one more time to see if I think of what else. So I'm going
sorry, Marion, I've got an override color that I clicked on mine. And therefore, then it went to the color I'm asking, but I had to click that box, override color.
I wonder if it's, you're both on Mac, right? I wonder if
no, I'm on a PC.
You're on a PC. Okay, but Nancy, do you see, like, so I click on all I do is I'm using a mouse, so I click on it and this box comes up. That doesn't happen for you?
No, no, I click on it and nothing happens. It just
Nothing.
stays gray.
Are you on custom below?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Okay, we'll try to figure that out for you after, Nancy, but.
Yeah, no worries. Don't spend any more time on it. Thank you.
Okay, and then we'll go to, okay, I don't even know what I've done by this time. Here, let me just pick any color. Okay. Okay, I forgot to highlight mine and mine's going the wrong way and everything, but you've seen me do it before. So I didn't go back and fix it with, okay. Here, let me get my box bigger here. So you can, and this is why I like to have the guides on, because it lets you see if you're centered, things like that. And then you can either change the size of this just by dragging the corners of the box, or over here on the right with the scale. Okay. And you can even, you know, have it come up into your image, something like this. And this is when I also like to turn off my guides and just see how it looks. Okay.
I did get it, by the way, by using that override color, which I saw on the right. So thank you to Julie or whoever said that.
Okay, that's good, yeah. I know it's when it works one thing way on my computer, I'm like, I don't know. Okay, so.
Excuse me, I've got a problem with it being vertical and right on the picture. How do you move that box down? I didn't see you do it because I've only got one computer going here.
Oh, okay. So I'm coming over, I'm zooming in on the identity plate again.
Right?
And then up here, see where, click on right beside the word identity plate, there's a 0 degrees.
Right.
Click on that, and then there's no rotation, rotate on screen 90 degrees. Click on no rotation, I would say. That would bring you to be horizontal.
Okay, let me try that. Just a minute now. Okay.
Marion, can you
What?
hear me?
Where is that no
Yes.
rotation? I'm here, there now. Oh, up here. Okay.
Okay, Yuda, I
Yes.
can hear you, Yuda, yes.
Yeah, I've tried a couple of times. I think I got muted, but my total image with the flowers and I've got flowers and the title beneath them, I've got a lot of space at the bottom. Like I've got still almost like a full portrait mode.
Did you change in your custom, remember when we changed the custom file dimensions? Did you change it to 9 inches by 5 inches?
No, I changed to 9 by 9, so that's probably it.
Yeah, that's why. Just change it to 5 and everything should look a lot better.
Oh, I lost my pictures. Now I've just got the title.
No, you've just deselected them. When you select them again, they'll all come back.
Okay. All right, select them again. No.
Custom file dimensions 9 by 5. It doesn't change the size.
The window itself has changed, but my pictures are just little tiny dots. I think.
Oh, change the cell size. Go to the cell size and change it. So come back up here.
Yeah.
And slide both sliders all the way over to the right.
Okay, my sliders have gone. I've got 0.25 inches.
Okay. Okay, slide the sliders
Oh.
all the way to the right in here. And then keep square. And then they should be a good size because they'll fit within what we're doing.
Yeah, no, they don't quite fit. They're quite spaced.
Oh, then that is your cell spacing. Go up above the cell size to cell spacing. See if I get mine. See, I can do that.
Yeah, now
Go-
they're as big as they'll go, but that's it.
No, go up above cell size to cell spacing.
Yes.
Take the horizontal spacing and slide it all the way to the left.
It is. They're still quite tiny.
I don't know, Marion, you want to try, take a minute and fix it and demonstrate for everyone, or do you want to move?
Okay, sure, Yuta. Can you share your screen?
Sure.
And then you'll have to give me access to your remote.
Right. Okay. Let's see, where am I at?
And then see the cell size, it's 0.25 by 0.25. Get them to be, both of them the maximum size, and then give a little bit of horizontal spacing. And then I would move up the bottom margin a bit to bring them right.
How
Yeah,
did you
move-
move the box there? Because I could never find the box. There. Yeah,
Okay,
of
what's your
the-
question then, Judith?
Pardon?
What's your question?
Where it says spring flowers, I couldn't, my box wouldn't come up. It just changed the print. Where did you find the box?
Oh, okay, well, that's again in the page under this dialogue,
Uh-huh.
right? So if we go back here, edit.
Yuda, it's Chris. If you click on spring flowers, that rectangular box comes up around it.
Yeah.
So Bill,
Okay, all right.
click outside of the box.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry, that was a question?
Yeah. and
Yeah.
then click
Okay.
on-
That's what we're doing, we just click on it.
Click on it and then you can move it, and then when you click on it again, the box disappears.
Okay, all right, great.
Okay, so
Yeah,
did,
it is a bit moving between these different
yeah, but-
parts to put it together. Okay, I'm going to then. You good, Yuda? I think
Yes,
I answered your
yeah,
question.
I'm good.
Clear
Thanks
for
very
everybody else
much.
as well? Okay, I'm going
Okay.
to give it back to Marion.
okay. Okay, so what you want your cell sizes to be pretty well, to be at their maximum, unless you want them to be very tiny the way they were in UDIS. But that's like, those are the things, you know, to look for. The cell size, you want them to be all the way to the right. The spacings, you want to be more to the left. I don't like them all the way to the left. I don't like no spacing. But if everything's jammed up against the top, look at your top. Like I can, if I bring this to, no, I can't. I can't even bring it to 0. Not sure why. Something, I must have something set. But see, it's all of these types of things that you need to adjust. And as you adjust one, it compensates by moving the other things around. So just always go back to this layout and play in there. And that's where you'll be able to move things around and size them. Okay, and the identity and the flowers, you click, you move, you click, it disappears. Okay, so now, oh, Bill, I said I would get through both this one and the custom one in an hour. It's already an hour. Okay, so now,
Already done the custom.
oh, so now we want to, before you print to file, which we're going to want to do to save whatever you've created, but you want to create a saved print, which is in the top right-hand corner. Okay, so if everybody clicks on that, and then you name it whatever you want. And then I always put, this is a thing, location. You can put it in, I have a collection called collages. So I put all my collages in that collection. So wherever you want to put it, you just have to decide and remember, but I would suggest you put them always all in the same place so you can find them again. Okay, now.
All right, I have a
Okay.
question. That's, the save prints are just like another collection, right? You put them, you work
Yes.
with them like collections. You can put
Yeah,
them
they
in
like
side
collections.
collections and
Yeah,
then-
we're not making a duplicate of the images or anything like that. It's just this configuration, we've put them in, the Lightroom catalog is storing it as a collection. Okay, so now I think most of you are only using the 3 images, so this might not show up, but this is important because this really messed me up before, so I'll zoom in on it. Right here, where it says include only used photos, that, if that shows up, if you only have 3 photos, it won't show up, but make sure that is checked. Or else, I didn't used to put my photos in a collection for making the collages, and then they would be like in, it would take the 500 photos in whatever month I was in and save it with this collage. It was a big mess. So you wanted to include only used photos, which in this case would be 3. And then you create. Okay, then
Can't figure that out.
you go, okay, go down to my film strip. I go under collages, and then you should and see how like my collages only have 3 or 4 beside it. I used to have some that, like I said, had 487 or something beside it because I didn't know not to check include only used photos. So learn from my mistakes. Okay, see, and then I have these different ones in here, and then I click on them, and these are all the LCC ones. Yeah. The one. I'm getting an echo. Okay. Bill, I'm getting a complete echo of everything I say. Any advice?
Yes, I'm muting some mics here. Sorry.
Okay.
Is that better?
Yes, that's better.
Yeah, somebody had a mic on, that's right.
Okay, so once you've created your saved file, oh, I need to go back to where I was. Oh, and see, I come back and only, well, but I come back and I'm only seeing 1 photo. It's because I don't have all 3 selected in this film strip. If all of a sudden your photos are missing, it's just, they're not selected, that's all. You just select them. I don't know why it does that, but it certainly has happened before. So just be aware of that. And then you'll just see them in the film strip and select them. Okay, so now let's try to print this now. So, very important. Here, I'll come over, I'll zoom in again. Okay. Sorry, I can't, why won't the box move? Okay, here we go. So very important, draft mode printing has to be off. File resolution, we've talked about this already, 300 ppi, whatever you want for sharpening. Mine is high and glossy. JPEG quality, it can be anything. I don't know why mine is 93. I don't think it has to be 100. Maybe I just put mine a bit lower. And no print adjustment because we're not actually making a print. Because you know how when you print, everything's a little bit darker. And then you hit print to file. Then, like always, you choose, mine comes up to the default of the last thing where I printed something. And you name it.
Marion, you have to unzoom.
Oh, sorry. Is this the problem with the zooming? Okay. Let me see. Okay, so then you name it. And then you save it, and it will save it. I'll go ahead and do that. And it says up here in the top left, it says preparing print job. And that takes a little bit longer than exporting. And then when I won't bother you showing you all my screens and whatever. Let's just hope if everybody can go to where they sent it and see if what they thought should print has printed. Okay, I'm not sure how many people are muted or unmuted. Is it working for people?
Yes, mine did.
Okay, great.
Yeah, mine's good too, Marion.
Good, good.
Yeah.
Great.
Oh, boy.
Hey, Google,
I'm not succeeding.
give me a wake-up call at 3:45 p.m.
3:45 p.m. Set.
Can anyone actually hear me?
I'm hearing somebody, I'm not sure. Oh, I'm seeing a chat from Angela that it's working great. That's great, Angela.
It's not working for me, it's Pia.
Oh, specific font, if anybody wants the name of it, is Triptychs, like script and then INA. Triptychs.
Lovely,
Have
yeah,
different-
beautiful.
different fonts, so.
Okay, so I feel like I want to see everybody's, oh no, I guess that would just take too much time. So is everybody, okay, I'm not sure what to do here. I didn't think this would take that long. Bill, do you want me just to quickly demonstrate the custom one? Or do you want to go to your stuff?
Yeah, well, I think we're almost ready for break, so.
Oh yeah, we need break first. Okay, sorry.
Marion, I have a
Yes.
question. Once you've finished it and exported it and created this file, is that it? You can't edit that anymore?
You can edit it if you come back to where you've saved your, you know how when it doesn't show anymore, but when we created the save, what was that called? Save created file? I think we pressed.
Create, save, print.
Yes, and then see they're over here. So let me see. Here's my pastels. Oh, no, so this is one, my flower group was all about doing these this week. So see, I'm here now in my pastel one I did this week, and no, I'm coming
Okay.
back to it and I can change it.
Okay.
Yeah, see, so that is why I like the create, the save, print, so that they're there and I can come back to them.
Perfect. Thank you.
Just to be clear, then to get a different file, you have to output it again. So you can't edit that JPEG, but you can save different versions.
Right, you have to come back into Lightroom and into the print module and go to into your collection wherever you're going to save them. Yeah,
Okay.
like the JPEG that you've exported, when it's done.
Okay.
Okay, so we're all good for like a 10-minute bathroom break here. And so I'm going to mute everybody again. We'll come back. It's 20 after 1. We'll come back at 1:30.
Okay, we're good. Okay, so I am back in my library. Oh, I'm back in my library, and I'm just going to, I created another one of these flowers specifically for this. So now I'm choosing the 4 flowers and some different backgrounds. I've selected them in my collection in the library, and then I'm going to print. And usually when you go to print, you just come back to the last place you left off. You know, so what I do, I know I want to do a custom for square. Oh, let me, here I'm trying to, oh boy, there we go. I need to grab the end of this so we can come over here. So over on the left here, there is a template browser. So if you click on the triangle, you will see all of the Lightroom templates there. As you create your own, I'll show you how to do this in a minute, they will be under user templates. So I am choosing custom Foursquare. Okay, and now this is Lightroom's template, so I'm going to take off custom file dimensions. This is just a lot of fiddling around usually. I shouldn't say usually, and then I get out of it, and then I come back into it, and everything is where I want it. So it's just a matter of, I know it's annoying, it goes to the default and then I go to something else, but check, you have to uncheck custom file dimensions because you want Lightroom to take over with their own dimensions. Okay, so now this is where you have a lot more flexibility. So this is my original photo. This was a thing for my flower group. You take one picture and change it using tint and temperature and split toning and whatever. So my original, I can put that one there. I can put that one there. I can put that one there. So unlike when we were in the rows and columns, when the only way to change the order was to go back to the library and change it, here you can't swap, but you can override. So I can put that one there and this one here. So you have a lot more flexibility. Now you can add a background, but this is important here. I'm going to take this background. Oops, that isn't what I wanted to do. Okay, I'm going to take the background and put it there. But see how it's very small? So I'm going to expand it to fit, but now you can't see anything behind it, but you right click with the mouse, send to back, and there you go. Now, once you have it sized like that, you can swap it out. I can put that one in there. I can put that one in there. Okay, and the other thing you can do is you can overlap things. And then you can decide, like let's say I want this one on top. I right click on it and send forward. You can do things like that. So how I started getting more customized is I would use these Lightroom templates as the starting point and then work with them to create templates that I liked, okay? And you use your custom file dimensions and that. So let's say now I like that one with the overlap. Now, which I don't, just to save it as your own template that you can come back to time and time again, because it's easy to, you get some you like, you come to template browser, go to this plus sign, create new preset, as everything else in Lightroom. This type of thing comes up. It's telling you it will put it in the folder user template, so you don't have to worry about that. And then try to make it as
You have to unzoom, Marion.
oops. Thanks, Harry. Okay, I better do that whole thing again. Okay, so go plus, this comes up. It automatically will be saved under user templates, and then make it as descriptive as you can. Lightroom trial template, create, and then over here, I have a number of user templates, but you will get a collection. They go in alphabetical order, and there is my Lightroom trial template. See, and it comes up and it doesn't have photos in it, but you can then, I can, you can put different things in there. And, put it, well, I won't do the background because you have to make it bigger. So that's how you start customizing, and that's how you get different backgrounds. Okay, so that should give you lots of ideas for how to play.
Question, Marion.
Yes.
Let's say you've got just this portrait of Juliana.
Uh-huh.
It's a 1, but it's smaller. Can you put her in the background again, so maybe you can see the baby in the background as well as the main photo?
Yep, then I would take this, take that photo, and, oops, sorry, select it. It's because now I'm trying to hurry because I've taken so much time. Do that, and send to back. And then, then this one here, see, I could make smaller, and
okay.
I can delete that and delete that. Oh, and there's one important thing here is there's a thing, I can't find it right now. Oh, lock to photo aspect ratio. If you lock that, it makes sure when you move it around and change size, like see now it'll keep the proper aspect ratio. If I don't have that checked, I can do all kinds of crazy things with it.
Okay, thank you.
But what it does, it locks this back, the background aspect ratio too. So usually I get everything where I want it in a template with the locked aspect ratio. And then I unlock the back one and make it so it can fit the whole size. Okay, is that good? Okay, and now Bill, if there's no more questions, we'll let Bill, he has lots of surprises to show everybody.
Questions?
Yes.
It's Don. Can you make the photo instead of being completely solid, but a bit, I think translucent is the word.
You would do, not that, I have done that before, but I adjusted the translucency in Photoshop. I don't know how to adjust it here.
Okay. And
I've
then,
made it, oh, but there is something. Okay, here, I can show you this. I'm gonna lock to aspect ratio. If you're here and you think, oh, that looks too light, if you go to develop, oh, sorry, and just come to the basic panel. Let's say I darken this now. Oh, poor thing. And go back to print. It will stay there. So sometimes when you get your photos and they don't look good together, you just pick the photo you want, click on it, go to develop, and adjust it, and then come back and it will be adjusted.
and the other question, they're all rectangular. Is it possible to like have a oval?
Okay, sorry, I'm gonna have to mute everyone again for a second. So go ahead now, whoever was asking the question, unmute yourself. I just needed to stop the feedback.
Yeah. So is it possible to have, I guess it would be in Photoshop, where you don't have, instead of a rectangular shaped picture, if you're shooting if you're having a person and you have several shots as you're doing here, so it may look a little better blended in. Is that possible? Do you know what I mean? Like an oval shape instead of a square shape?
Yeah, so Don, a lot of this, once you put out that JPEG file, you can open that file now in Photoshop and work on it, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to do some more tuning, like, you know, blending the edges and that sort of thing, if that tool isn't available in Lightroom, you still have that option as well. Because now you have most of the work done for you in Lightroom, but you can fine tune it in Photoshop as well. So a lot of that stuff is like what you're asking before, is you can do a PNG file with a transparent background, bring that into Lightroom and then pop it in, and then the background should be transparent. But
so the background in this one showing now, the lower right-hand corner, the background, the white part, you need to have that clear, for lack of a better word. So you could.
So I'm not sure that Lightroom supports any transparency here. That's actually a really good question. I don't know if you know the answer, Marion. I don't think it does. I haven't seen it before. Am I hearing from Marion? Nope, I've lost Marion.
He's on mute, I think.
No.
White part showing.
Sorry, Marion, you got muted somehow. Okay.
Oh, sorry. The only thing, you know, I thought, oh, maybe you could make the oval in effects, like I did here. Here, I'll make it bigger. You know, but you're not going to get any transparency. This isn't for super fancy collages, right? It's fun to do. It's great for like your Facebook banner photo, you know, how, you know, your Facebook cover photo is very wide and short, you know, just, yeah, like you can put together a few photos and make a Facebook cover photo, things like that. But the really fancy stuff belongs, you go to Photoshop. But this is a more basic, a basic way.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, any more questions out there from anyone?
Okay, so I will stop my share. And
so this is where the flexibility part of this comes in. So first of all, I've lost my mic, so I'm just using my computer mic. So if that's still sounding good, please let me know if it's not. I'll try to modulate my voice. I have about an hour's worth of stuff. It's about 2:45. We said 3, but there's no particular reason to end the meeting. unless you guys lose interest, and that's fine. So what I'm going to suggest, I'll go on for a while, and then if you need to leave, just go ahead. You know, I won't be offended. And so if we can go forward, I have a few things. So any other questions before I go to the next section? Good. Anyone? Okay.
Hi, Bill. This is Simon. I have a question. What if I want to do one photo, but split them into three, like the example that Marion showed?
You can do that. I've done it before. I've just cropped them into 3 sections in Lightroom, like made virtual copies, and then, you know, cropped each copy into its third, and then brought them in and put them on a different background in Lightroom.
Oh yeah, so you mean like doing a panel of the same
Sure.
photo, split
Bill,
into
can I?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you want to?
Yeah.
Yeah, just quickly, I'll show you one I did. I think this is what you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah, share a screen, Marion.
Yep. Okay, we'll just hope this shows up. If it doesn't, there we go, like that. I made that in Lightroom. And it was just, I made virtual copies, split it into 3, brought it into Lightroom on I made this a long time ago. I didn't even know about textured backgrounds, and this is just a plain background. But I think this is what you're talking about?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, so that is possible. Okay, here we go. I'll give it back to you, Bill.
Okay, so what I wanted to do, I got sort of a hodgepodge of stuff that I wanted to go through, but I thought for some of the basic stuff is some of the questions I get all the time. If I can show my menu up here. One very handy thing in Lightroom is going to get help. And there is a help center right from the help menu. Sorry, get into Lightroom, get to the right program. Okay, so a lot of what I want to show today is how to use modifiers to change the way some of the tools behave. And a lot of that is done with, I like to call it chording. So very much like on a piano, you don't hit one key at a time, you hit several keys together. On the computer interface, you have that combination of modifier keys that you could use. The shift key, the option key, the control key. And oftentimes using those keys in combination can give you some, extend the usefulness of some of the tools. Now to find out where they are, Lightroom has this built in right on the menu bar. So we can look to library module, for example. We can go right to the, sorry, that's not what I wanted to do. Pick the wrong one. We go to help, is we can show library module shortcuts. And so right built in, lost it. So right built into Lightroom, and I'm not sure if everybody's kind of aware that's there. And I find I go here a lot when I'm working in a new part of the program that I don't use very often, just to remind myself what those key controls are. So that's pretty self-evident. But related to that is if I go to the, if I go out to help, it'll actually take me right out to Lightroom site. And it gives you their list of basically their online manual. And I find this really good when I'm trying to figure out something where I've forgotten how to do something in Lightroom. I go through here, and this is a really good reference. And then I often will go down to going down to finding different information about it. So we can go, there's Lightroom Classic, and there are a bunch of tutorials online, and you can follow this through. If we go, they have different topics. Sorry, I forget where this was now. Sorry, right at the bottom. Is keyboard shortcuts. And right in here gives you all the keyboard shortcuts that are there. And I find just taking a few minutes and going through this will give you some insight on how some of these tools work. And a lot of the hidden gems in Lightroom are actually in here. So it's worth kind of having a look through. And some of them aren't very useful. A lot of them are, it's much easier to go to the menu for and just select it. But a lot of times when you try to do two things at once, there's some stuff in here that is very useful to have. So I'm gonna, some of the stuff I'll be showing in a few minutes, this is where you can find some of that information. So what I wanted to start with then today is just working with panels, a couple of things. And if I go into library mode, and if I go into any of these panels, and actually what really bothers me sometimes in Lightroom are things like this. It kind of remembers where I was. And you can see on the left here, I'm just gonna share it again, hang on a second. I'm just going to zoom my screen in a bit. Okay, if everybody can see in there. So these are my folders. And oftentimes you'll have this where all these nested folders are open. And I find this kind of really annoying to navigate through sometimes. And sometimes I just want to clean up this panel. So there is a nice little shortcut. If you hold the Option key on the Mac or the Alt on the Windows machine, and I'll go back and forth. So forgive me if I confuse Option Command and Control and Alt. They go back and forth, but you'll know which one I'm talking about on your machine. But if I, on Mac, for example, if I hold the Option key on, so while I have the Option click, and I go to the top folder, so here's my folder called Photography. If I just click on that with the Option key on and close it, sure, okay. So if I hold the Option key and click that Photography folder, it collapses that folder and all the hierarchy underneath it. But since I closed it with the Option key, if I open it now, it collapses all the submenus. So now I can go through and now open them again, one by year. So if I go to, and I find I use this a lot. So every time I want to kind of get back. So that's kind of I find that a pretty neat tip. So that's my first little tip. The other thing is solo mode. If you right click on beside any of these headers, you get this pop up. Again, do you want me to zoom in again, or can people see that? I think we can see that. You get this solo mode here in the middle. And you just want to try that on some of your panels. So the difference that makes is sometimes you get all these collections open. You got big, long lists of collections, catalogs, or whatever you have open. Again, just clicking beside one of the headers, right-clicking, and putting it in solo mode collapses all the column, all the sections except the one that you're working on. So I find this a lot if I'm working in collections. It just cleans everything up. I am now getting so many collections and so many folders that these lists are starting to get unmanageable. So that's another little tip. And I find that really useful on this side, on the catalog side. Over on the other side here, on the develop side, generally in develop mode, you'll need all of these open because you'll tend to work with more than one of these sections together. Okay. So now the other tip, and I talk about this in our other courses, is to use the is to use what's called the breadcrumb bar down here. And if you're not familiar with this one, I use this one quite a bit. Sorry, I have to get my screen back. I'm just going to zoom in so we can see that. So I find this is one of the most kind of used areas in Lightroom, mainly because it's so small. But, and I talked about this before in my other, you hear me talk about doing this shoulder check all the time. So like when you're pulling out on the highway, you kind of look over your shoulder to make sure that you're not cutting somebody off in a lane. What this does is give you some feedback right away for whatever action you're doing. So for example, it tells me how many images that I'm looking at and out of the total and how many are selected. And this number of selected gives me, often will save me making a mistake for exporting my entire library or, you know, working on 100 images rather than the one that I just wanted. So I tend to always go down here and make a habit of looking down here. It also has some forward and back arrows that kind of work like a forward and back key in a browser. I find this doesn't work always as you expect, but it can get me back. The other thing I find too is often when I'm doing a lot of hunting around and editing, I will lose track of where the last image was. So if I'm working on, let's say, a trip or something, what I like to do, I'd like to go here in the pop-up, and let me move this over. So this little pop-up menu here gives you all the recent sources. So these are the last places I've been. It's a bit like the history list in a browser. It tells me where I've been last. So it's a quick way for me to get back to something I've been working on maybe over the last couple of days. Now we have different options here, the screen here, but we can now have this section here where we have favorites. So wherever I am, I can now add to this favorite section. So for example, I always have my folder Lightroom added here, so I can jump back to the top of the hierarchy for Lightroom or what my current pictures are. So rather than going back to all photographs, for example, up here, which includes all my archived images, normally I don't care about those. I just want to go back to my current selection of images that are actually stored on the drive that I'm working on. And all of those are in my folder called Lightroom, and I can just quickly jump there. Or if I have any collections or folders, I can put in here, and I can keep them permanently here as well as where I've been last. So I find this really, really handy. So if you haven't played with this very much, it's great. Also, it's a quick way to go to quick collections or to see the previous import. Now you can get all those at other places in Lightroom, but I find this is like, it's always here and handy to have. So that was my other tip. The other thing I wanted to talk about then is I wanted to do a little demonstration on color correction. I'm back to my demo collection. And I think I've done this in a couple of courses, but I thought it might be worth coming back and looking at again. So we have two images here. Okay, I'm not sure I have two. Okay. Let's go to develop. So this is kind of a typical situation that you might have where there's a real mix of light in an image. And we have overhead mercury vapor lights in this garage. We've got daylight coming in here. We've also got, I'm just gonna make this a film. We've also got these incandescent lights inside the coach. So how do we go about correcting that? And really, there's 4 or 5 ways to do it. There's lots of videos on how to color correct in Photoshop and Lightroom. But I came across this neat little thing from Blake Rudis a few years ago, and I'd like to share it. And the other point of it does, it really he gets a great tip on color management that I'd like to share as well. So basically what Blake's method is, he goes in here, and before you do any other selections, and of course we can also do white balance, and I'll show that in a minute, but our main thing we want to do here is get rid of the color cast. And I don't know what it looks like on your screen. I don't know if this version is better. Yeah, I did more work on this one. But basically, I've got a bit of an orange color cast to this. And to knock that back and not unbalance the image too much, a real quick thing is just to go into our basic panel and select vibrance. And we want to take our vibrance up to 100%. So what that will do, vibrance will saturate most of the unsaturated colors, and it doesn't resaturate colors that are already saturated. So you use vibrance rather than saturation. And let's just show you the difference. Saturation saturates everything, but vibrance will only saturate some of the least saturated colors. And what that gives me the color that is dominant in my color cast. Then all I have to do now is I have to go back to my temperature and tint, and now I can start knocking back some of that yellow cast. And by doing this, basically I want to go back to doing, I want to bring my temperature a little left to cool it down a little bit. And I don't want to go too far because now I'm going to introduce a blue cast. But by setting this just a little bit, and because I'm exaggerated, I can see what I'm doing. So I'll bring this in, and now you can see the difference in the light quality. As I'm bringing the yellow cast from the incandescence down, I'm actually bringing up the blue cast from the exterior light. So you notice how the daylight that's coming in is showing blue here. So the idea here is to get a bit of a balance. And then I come back here and I reset the vibrance panel. And the quickest way to reset these sliders is just to double click on the word. And most of you know that trick. And so what that gives me then is now a much better color cast. And I don't know if you can see the difference. And some images it's quite slight, and some images it's quite pronounced. But before I start editing now, and without worrying about finding a white balance in this image, I now have a color corrected image. So this is Blake Rudis has this little thing on his website. If you want to go find this, it's on YouTube, I believe. He's got a video on this, but it's very, very simple. So we simply go to increase vibrance to 100%, and then we adjust the temp, the tint and temperature sliders until the dominant color is removed, and then we just set it back. What I liked about his little demonstration is why it works. And if you're doing color work in Lightroom or Photoshop, a basic concept that I think is worth exploring and learning about is how colors are managed in an RGB color system. And if you have a piece of paper, what you should, and everybody try and do this if you have a pen and paper handy. If not, don't worry about it. But if you make a column of letters on the left and call it RBG, and then right beside that column do a column of CYM. So basically we have R and then C, then B and Y, and G and M in two columns. What that'll tell you is that those colors are opposite of each other. So for example, if you want to get rid of yellow in an image, you have to give it more blue. Because of the way computers work and this RGB, you only really are working with those three color channels at any time. So you don't have those, you don't have any other options. And then the counterparts to those that are built in the system are again the yellow, cyan, and magenta. So if you look at your little chart, and I have this written down, I leave this whenever I'm doing color correcting or working, I have this little 2 columns, RBG and CYM, so C for cyan, yellow, and magenta. Then by increasing one or the other, you reduce the other. So doing color corrections and balances is important to understand that. If you look now at the I'm just going to pop over here. If you look at these temperature sliders, you can see how that works. So we have a blue yellow on top and a green magenta on the bottom. So as you go one direction or other, you increase one and decrease the other. So just having that in mind as you do color correction is good to learn about. So again, very well worth reading up on that and knowing that. So that's my little tip on color correction. I have a few more tricks to do that, and if we have a little time at the end, I will show you on an image that I'm working on. Okay, so that was color correction.
Sorry, Bill, could you tell me again what the name of the guy was that site?
Lake Rudis.
Okay.
Lake Rudis, and I can send that off in a note at the end.
Thank you.
In fact, I'll send a link to that to everyone when we're done. Okay. So the other thing I want to talk about then is some tips using some of the tools. And the first one I want to talk about is a gradient tool. Now, gradient tool you'll use very commonly in adjusting a landscape. And normally what we do, is use the gradient to adjust skies and that's usually the go-to tool for that. But in using that tool, I use it in a specific way before I start adding it to an image. So one of my pet peeves with the way Lightroom does these tools is they have these pins, and there's a pin, and I find these pins get lost and are hard to find sometimes, especially when you have a lot of adjustments going on. And they have the same pin for all the different tools. So there's a pin for the gradient, a pin for the radial gradient, and a pin for the brush. So what I do, rather than just grab a gradient and bring it down. So for example, if I wanted to come down here and just lighten or darken the sky, rather than do that, I will make sure that I go over here. So with my image, instead of having it fill, make sure you're on fit. So what I want to see then, I want to see this gray border around your image, and you can adjust your panels a bit so that fills. And that may be a different size depending on how big your film strip is, and the windows are, so it may look a little differently. But the main thing is here is to use the shift key as you draw out one of these gradients, and start just off to the edge, off the image. What that does then, it constrains the shift key, it constrains the gradient tool to keep from going crooked on you, and keeps it perfectly straight. And now I can bring that down right straight to the horizon line, or wherever I want it in the image. So by holding the shift key down, I've constrained that tool. Now if I still want to rotate it, I can still move that gradient if I need to do an angle. But what I find, for the most part, the gradients, I'm using it this way. And what it allows me to do then is keep them off to the side. So if I have multiple gradients going, and let's say I take them. Now I'm not looking for them. If I'm out of the tool, and then I come back to it, they pop up right away and they're easy to find. So now if I need to go and adjust them, I can. So I want to take the exposure down a little bit on this one, set that one, about 210, maybe increase the contrast, some sharpness there. This one. And you get the idea. So what I like about that, it organizes these tools. It's very hard to do that with the brush or the radial gradient, but for this tool, it keeps them off. So now I'm not getting confused where they are. So that's my tip on gradients. There's another little quick tip as well, is if, for example, let's exaggerate this one. Let's say, let's do this. Let's say I'm going the wrong way with it. So rather than start over, there is a little modifier key, and that's the apostrophe key. The apostrophe key flips the gradient tool. So it just changes its direction. Is that too severe? So it just flips it from one way to the other. And I find oftentimes if I'm going the wrong way. So it basically takes it from one direction to the other. And there's lots more on the gradient tools to use, but that's the one that I use the most. Okay, I'll wait for time. Oh, the other thing too is, you know, about showing the overlay masks, and we have that available. Usually though too is if you just hover and wait for a minute, it will show you the gradient, and it'll show you the mask, the overlay mask. And another tip too here, sometimes you know, you don't want to change any of these effects. You simply want the effect to be just a little bit stronger. A really quick way to do that is to right-click on the pin and then duplicate it. And then I always drag it up a little bit so I can find it again later, because actually, and it's really annoying sometimes when they're hidden. But so what I can do now is, by doing that, I can increase the amount of the effect just by duplicating. Sometimes that's just enough to make it a bit stronger without changing the intensity anywhere. And of course, like all the tools, there's also a way to take away the effect and to change the opacity of any effect simply by clicking this triangle in the top here on, and this works for both the gradient brush and radial gradient. You can put this, click this triangle, and now you get a slider. And I think I will zoom into that. And again, by changing the opacity, I can change the amount of the effect without changing any of the individual controls. So wherever I have these sliders set, let me just make a mess here, I can increase the opacity of that effect or decrease it. So you always have a little bit there, but now I can make that effect very subtle. So that's my other little tip with the tools. Back to the panel. How are we doing for time? Oh, not too bad. So my last little, well, I got a few more, but the real tip that I wanted to get today was is something that's this is one of the little secrets that I found a while ago using the brush tool. So the brush tool is kind of interesting. There is a bit of a misconception about Lightroom that that you're actually, this brush tool is a paintbrush. It actually isn't. You actually don't do any painting in Lightroom. Lightroom basically is all the adjustments are masks. So any of these adjustment tools, local adjustment tools, are masks that they put over the original image. And once you kind of get the idea that these are masks and not paintbrushes, then it kind of opens up a better understanding of how the tools work. And if you're used to working with layers and masks in Photoshop, this becomes even more easier to understand and to work with. But because they're masks and not paintbrushes, we have more subtle applications that we can do with them, and they have sort of a different effect on the image. So we're not laying down color. What we are doing is we're laying down opacity and tones. And for example, you can't get a black or white on any of these brushes because it's not paint. It is just either a lack of color or a lot of exposure, or no exposure and no color. So what I wanted to show was being able to use the brush and using some of the add-ons on the brush. So let's get to the brush. And there is, I'm going to move into, so the part of the brush that I wanted to talk about and show you. Let me adjust the screen. Sorry, this is a bit clunky. Is this idea that in the brush tool, you actually have three brushes. And if that's not open, you have to drop this triangle open. So if you're not seeing that, you may have to drop that down. So in this brush tool, we have an A brush and a B brush, and there's also an erase. Okay, so this is kind of important. And what we can do is we can use that combination together. So there is a way to do in Lightroom to do lighting effects. Again, I'm not sure why this isn't working. Click, change my brush. And now I change to B. There we go. Okay, that's what I was trying to show. So by starting with brush A and then switching to brush B, I can now change the size of brush B and make it much bigger than brush A. So I'm just going to exaggerate this a little bit, and I can put some feathering on. By holding the Shift key now, it will draw a straight line to wherever I click the brush next. And now this gives me a nice, interesting brush shape. And now I can control the beginning of it, and I control the end of it. I can control how much feathering happens, and all of that's done again by using the A and B, having these at a different size. So if I go to A, for example, that's where I'm having issues with zoom not changing. And then notice how my A size, and you're not seeing anything on the screen, but I have my A size set to very, very small. I have the feather set to 0 and the flow at 0. And now on my B brush, I increase the size, I increase the feather, and I increase the flow. So by doing that, selecting A, I have a spot. And now I have to shift to the B brush. And actually there's a little shortcut for that, and that's the slash key, /. It automatically adjusts, and then I hold the Shift key down. And that gives me a nice pattern. And now while I have the same tool selected, I can now do multiple brush strokes with the same brush panel. So I'm not doing a new brush. I'm just still working with the same brush. I just have to select to brush A, and now I can go to brush B, and go to brush B. Again, I'm just forgetting to hit the Shift key. Let me try it again. All right, just getting some lag here because of the zoom interface. Again, the Shift key, and there we get this night. So you're asking, where the hell would I use this? Well, this is great for doing this sort of thing. Now, if I if I use this brush tool, just the way I demonstrated, I can make these rays. And again, I am using a and B brush, one at a very small setting, and one at a little bit better setting and with a flow. And now I can start adding rays to this image. And now, because it's a single brush, I can use all my adjustment tools inside the brush to start changing the character of these rays. I can lower the clarity to make it a little bit blurry. I can adjust the texture of them. I can use the shadows to have it a bit more translucent. Highlights. I can change the saturation. I can change the tone. I can actually start adding some color to it. And in this case, I actually picked up a little color from the image. And if I go to my history here, you can see the progression. And that's the final result. So it's very, very subtle. It's a good image to start with. I used a very small aperture, so I get the starburst in it, but I just wanted a little bit more of the effect in this image. So by using that in Lightroom, I didn't have to go to Photoshop and do layers or do anything much fancy, simply by using that as a brush tool. And once I have these settings that work really well, I can go in now and I can make myself a preset for that brush. And I've done a couple of here. And once I have something that works very, very well, I save the preset, and then I can use it again. So this is doing it with rays. I showed you on this one how we used it to do spotlights. And here I can show you an example of how this might work really well on something like this. And I can go in now, for example, and use a brush tool to come in and use a spotlight tool, and I can start adding to this. And now I end up with something that I think enhances the image. And I'm using really what's only there or not. And if I click off of this, you can see what my final image is. So there are a bunch of other things that we can do in this, and I'll just talk about a couple of them very briefly. Go to my history. And again, so any questions as I go forward here? I feel like I'm talking in an empty room, so. Everybody still there? Anyone's still there?
Okay, I got a question for you, Pia here. I noticed that on your panel there, you had the exposure down, and yet this to me would appear that the exposure has been increased. How do you explain that?
Well, if I select the brush.
Yeah.
Right, so now I
No,
select.
your exposure is way down. Oh.
Yeah, so I can change the exposure.
Oh, so you moved it up. Okay.
Yeah,
right.
Okay, so it's just not keeping up on the history panel.
Okay. Got it.
The one thing I did want to show here is because this tool is available, let me just go up a little bit further. So you don't want to have to redo it here. Maybe it won't. Okay. You know, actually, let's start from scratch here. Okay, I'm just going to add the brush back again. We're still good for time. So I'm going to pick up my, and I've already made, so I'm getting in my brush tool. I'll pick up my soft spotlight, and I should be able to start. And again, whether I start the other thing is starting, depending on how you want to start, is where you set the A or B brush. So generally for rays, I want to start at the pinpoint and come back to the light source. But with a spotlight like this, I really want to start at the light source, and then I want to flow it out to the drawing. So I will start with my small brush, an A, and then I'll go to my big brush in B. Again, hold the shift key down is the key to this. And then I bring down my brush. And now I take the exposure where I want it. And I put some color in this one so I can see it, but by double clicking on the color, I can take it off. Or I can add color now. I can pick a color from the scene someplace and color that light. And I can then give it enough, just a hint of color or a little bit more. So you get to do some kind of cool stuff there. So now I have my spotlight, but now I can do a couple other things with it. What's really cool, and we in our advanced class we talk about using luminosity masking, and that's down in here. And I'm just going to show this really quickly because I can do a luminance masking on this brush. And let me just show you what that is like. So if I go into a new screen. And I'm sure some of you have been in our workshop. Marion demonstrated changing the color using luminosity and colors using this tool. But what I can do here is I can range mask on luminance. And what that lets me do then is it lets me control where the lights and darks fall in the brush. And the reason this is handy here, I'm just going to jump back, is because I have this looks a little bit unreal because the moonlight here would not light up the front of this tree, right? The tree would be in silhouette in the back. So what I need to do, I need to get rid of this adjustment around the tree. Well, I could go through and erase it very quickly, or I can just use this luminance panel now to just get rid of some of the dark. And by bringing my luminance slider down, I get rid of that effect on the dark parts of the image where it's touching. So I'll just show you that again. And because, and if you've not played with this, this is a very powerful new addition with the brushes and all the, I think brushes, gradients, and radial gradients all have this luminancy. So we have luminance and we have color. And again, as soon as I zoom in, I lose mouse control, which is really annoying here. Okay, so yeah, so we have color, and color is pretty obvious. You can select colors, but luminance, it is very much like luminosity masking in Photoshop, and it's kind of built in. So basically what I do, it's going to select now a range from light to dark, my highlights and my shadows, and it's going to apply that effect to just that range. So and I can show you that in a minute, and then I can adjust the feathering on that, how smooth it is. So this is a really great way to now adjust my adjustment. So now I can take away or add that, and I can smooth that out a bit. I'm going to get rid of the color so you can see that a little better. Okay, so that's pretty good. Now the other thing I might want to do is I'm now kind of covering up in this image. I'm adding too much brightness to the moon. So really all I want to do now is I want to erase the effect a little bit and make it less obvious. So I can go through now, use the erase tool. And if I hover, it gives me the overlay. And now I can make this erase tool just a bit smaller. And now I can start erasing it from the moon. So I've gone in, and now it's bringing back the detail in the moon. And I can just go through, and I can make this, I can erase now where I don't want the effect. So if I find this a little strong in the foreground, I can go. And if I want, I can simply go again. I haven't left this tool yet. So now if I want to add more, I simply go back to my A brush. I can click on the image. I go to my B brush, I hold the shift key down, and I can bring out more of the effect. I can now lighten that a little bit. Again, do one more. Again, go to the A brush. And then hold the shift key down, P brush. And now I've added a nice cone of light. I can edit it by erasing it. And now I'm finding the overall effect too strong. So now I can go over and adjust my opacity on this tool by closing this triangle down on top here by the edit and just removing the effect. And now I can come by with what is my finished image. Okay, so then how do we put those kind of three things that I've been talking about together into one image? I have something like this that was taken on a recent trip. And again, we're talking about color correction. I've got a lot going on. I have to get rid of my brush. So in this image, I've got incandescent light. I've got strong window light. And if I go back to the original image, so I've exposed this one basically to keep from blowing out the window. But as I bring the exposure up, this gets a little more yellow. So again, what I'll do is I'll bring the exposure up. And again, I'll take the vibrance tool all the way up. And now that's showing me where the yellow highlights is. It's also showing me where the blue is. And this blue is coming in here and through the window, because I actually used the flash here to flash this wall as I was taking the photo to expose this area in the image. And the blue is the daylight coming in. So that is a blue cast, we have a yellow cast. So now we need to balance this image. And again, we can do that by taking the vibrance all the way up. And now we can adjust our white balance using these tools to bring it to where we think it's, and you're not gonna get it perfect, but you're gonna get these two in balance. So it's as neutral as you can get it. All the shades are about the same. And then when you bring the vibrance back up, you're much closer to a color corrected image, and then you can start working with it. So this is where the color correction comes in. Then on this image, I had several images that ended up being in an HDR, and this was the final HDR that I brought in. And now you can see here, this is the final edit. And if I look at some of the things I did here, if I show my brush tool, if I can show it here. Again, I think my thing is covering the pin. A second. Let me look at the gradients first. So here again, I did some gradients, and notice how I've moved them off the slider. So I've done some gradients in here to control some of the highlights in here, and I've done one on this side. And again, because I have them just off the edge of the page, they're easy to find. Not so easy with the brush tools, but here it is. So again, I use that brush to make a cone of light down here. There was already a light in the original image, but I wanted to bring in just that part of it. So I could have used a brush tool and just painted in there, but by doing that, by using that method of the A and B brush, I get a nice cone here. So I can just show you how that kind of got there to begin with. Right, so you can see where I brought it in originally. Right, so I want to highlight that text, and now I just keep working the exposure and the adjustment. I want to add a bit of texture to it and color, tone, and now I just bring this until this looks right. And so for me, this Brooks was here was kind of is something that I want to call the viewer's attention to. So I wanted to make it very clear in the image, but I still want to be able to have it look realistic. I've also now dealt with the blown out room and the blue color cast from the natural light, and I still have the incandescent light here, which is still adding a lot of light to this corner, but to me it's a little blown out, but that's that's looks natural to me is when you look at this light would be quite bright in the room. So I think that's as much as I had for the tips. And yeah, and I guess the only other one that I had was, and I have a bunch of them for, you know, using some of the control keys to help manage your workflow. Okay, I'm going to unmute the mic. We're just about 3:30 now. I see most of you are still here, so that's a good sign. And I'm going to unmute now. So I'll take any questions.
Well, first off, thanks very much, guys. That was informative and an area that I don't personally spend a lot of time. That print module with the triptychs was quite nice. So thank you all again.
Okay, you're welcome.
Bill, I'm going to ask a question because I'm right now doing the Greg Ben's course on luminosity masking, exposure blending, and he has a module. I've just quickly gone through it where he targets colors. Like he would tell you to create two images, and then on one you target the with the blues, you target the blue colors, and then the other you target the yellows, and then you would blend that. Is that an easier way in Photoshop?
Yeah, so, okay, so they're two very different programs. Photoshop is a much richer tool. And you know, the luminosity masks are quite advanced in it. So if you're working with a tool like Lumenzia, but it's a big program. It's almost as complicated as learning Photoshop, but it's a very powerful tool. The thing with Lightroom, the big limitation is that you don't have layers. So really all you have are these tools to do the masking. But a lot of stuff you can do, like I say, I'm using Photoshop less and less because a lot of what I want to do, I can now do in Lightroom. So Photoshop, I would go in on an image like this would be only if I needed to. I had a very difficult blend to do, or I had some cloning that I needed to do. But for the exposure blending, this one was fairly straightforward. Actually, the HDR in Lightroom worked very well. But if I had a very complicated one or one with extremes, I still might pop into Photoshop and do it there. But there is a way, obviously, to do, and I'll just maybe go very quickly there, is, for example, if I wanted to change the color of this sheet here, and Marion's demonstrated this one before, I would go in and I would go and develop, and I would use my my tool, my brush tool, and I'll just do a real rough one here. Get my size, right, put this up, my size. And I would basically brush this. Now, set my effect to 0. And what I can do, I can use the masking tool here under color. And now I can select a bunch of these colors. So I can get a range of colors now. And then I can go in and under my color mask, I can now select that color. So for example, if I wanted to change it to, let's say, red, I can start picking up more or less of that green. And actually, I didn't get a very good selection there, but for example, I can start to auto mask. What I wanted to do was auto mask here. But as you can see, I'm selecting now. And I could spend time and get a very good selection there. And now if I add color mask, I could select areas of green. And this isn't a very dark green, so sometimes the selection doesn't work very well. But now I can now use the amount slider now to get, like I say, it's not showing much here, but we get the exposure up. So now I can use the amount slider to select more or less of the green. Notice I'm getting kind of the darker tones there now. I'm exaggerating that, but now if I want to change that to red, you see I get a very nice selection of red. So now I've changed that from green to red. And actually, Marion gives a very good demonstration of this in our courses. But you know, it's a bit crude here, but notice how I'm getting you know, a fairly good selection of the blanket. And that's how you can use luminosity masking. In Photoshop, you could do this for the entire layer.
It's so simple. You just use the panel and click on the color and the mask, and then you can adjust your masks either through black and white levels or curves.
Yes, and of course you have the curve tool in Lightroom as well.
Yeah.
Right. So in Lightroom we certainly have curves, and I didn't get into it today, but then you have curves, and you can adjust each color jet independently. Right. Now in Lightroom in Photoshop you can do this as a blend layer, and then you can apply opacity in each of these. But in Lightroom you don't have that option. So once you get to some of these extreme adjustments, it's you know, Photoshop is better. But I'm getting it a little bit into the weeds here. So
I have a question for everyone. Are there a number of people still here?
Yeah. I have a question before you leave, though.
Yeah.
Bill, I want to go back to your A/B mask that you showed. Now, the one on the image you got on the screen right now, you're showing Brooks was here. That was the purpose? Did I understand you rightly? That's what you're trying
to highlight this part of the image.
Okay, because when I look at it, it just looks phony, because the light looks like it's coming from the top, and yet it's coming in through the window onto the floor, and there's no way the light could hit that Brooks was here.
Yeah, so there's the original image, Harry, and there's a lamp off the side here. Right,
the assumption is that the ceiling
light highlighting that.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, it's just
this is not kind of, I don't think this is the actual finished one.
Okay.
I think that's a little better. Right, and there was a lamp in the original, and that's just what I'm using.
Yeah, it just doesn't look right to my eye, because the light, the corner of the top left of the window, and then the light hitting the floor makes me wonder how the light got up to the top in front of the valance. Anyway, so it's just, I was just asking a question.
Ghosts, Harry, ghosts.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, well, here, that's a good point, actually, Harry. If you find this is too strong, like I said, this was my demonstration, is I could just now tone that back, right? So until that looks more realistic to my eye. So I don't know what it looks like on your monitor. This looks pretty good to me.
Yes.
The other thing I can do now, of course, I've got the erase tool. So if I'm finding this is spilling over to where I don't want it, I can just simply erase. Right, I can just simply start erasing where that's hitting.
Okay.
That's too strong there. Right, and so it's just a matter of taste. So I'll take the criticism, but the idea is to show you the method.
No, it's Bruce. Can you hear me?
Yeah, just barely, Bruce. Yeah.
Okay.
You need to speak up a little
the
bit.
AB idea, and I think I'm just missing one minor step. I got the A brush much smaller than the B brush, and I've done the line, and it fans out just like yours does. But once it's fanned out, I'm not able to make adjustments with the feather and the flow. I can make adjustments to all the other menu items above, texture, clarity, all that. But
yes, so feather and flow is as it's drawing.
Okay, so you pre-decide that.
You pre-decide it, yes.
I got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so it's not soft enough, then increase the feather and do it again. And once you find a combination that works very well, then do a preset for it. Like on this one, I kind of like the way that these rays work. And so I have them, I have them as a preset.
Yeah.
Right, so there's my demo raise one. You know, I go down to where the setting is. So my A brush is there, and my B brush is there.
Right.
And I just have the preset for it.
Perfect. Thank you. This was fantastic, folks.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
You guys should be charging for this.
I'd pay.
I have a question for everybody that's still on. Wes, are you still there? I don't know if Wes is there. If people are interested in making triptychs, I thought maybe we could have an album in LCC events and people could put, show what they learned today.
Do it as soon as it's finished here.
That's a great idea.
Love it.
Great idea.
It kind of gives.
Marion.
Yes,
Pardon?
do.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. It kind of
What
gives you.
What you guys can do is amazing. Thank you so much. Love to see more of this sort of stuff.
Bill, can you move? There's terrible feedback.
Okay, yeah, one at a time then.
Okay, I'm unmuted myself. Okay, I think I heard Wes say it was okay for us to do that, have an album in LCC events. And it's always good if you can try something right after you've learned it, and having a place to show other people who've been in the session what we've done, I think kind of is a motivation, and it's good practice to start right away. So I'll talk to Wes about how to get that album started.
I'll set it up right as soon as we're off here.
Oh, perfect. Well, then I don't have to do anything. Perfect.
You guys have done enough. I can contribute a little bit here today.
Okay. Thank you.
And I think Marion and Bill, I can probably speak for everybody in the room. Thank you so much. It was really interesting. I thoroughly enjoyed it, even though I don't use Lightroom. I was still able to follow along with some of the stuff. So again, thank you so much for your effort and your work.
Oh, you are welcome. I'm glad you enjoyed it, everyone.
Absolutely.
There we go. Okay.
Okay.
Guys, thanks so much.
Okay,
everybody.
bye.
Have a great weekend.
Bye, everyone.
We'll